overcoming odds through rock and roll music. I met Scott probably the first day of middle school, I guess. And then we were really good friends after that. Chris I got to know really well in high school. We had a science class together. And Chris asked, I remember him asking me in that science class, want to start a band? Yeah. He's like, what about Kill All Redneck Pricks? I was like, no, but okay.
That was Carp playing live on the air, KOS Olympia Public Radio.
Hey, we got a call. It looks like we got a call.
Hello?
Am I on KOS now?
Yes, you're on the air. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I have a question for Carp.
What's your question?
Yeah, how come you guys are just so beautiful? How is it possible that three guys can be just so freaking handsome?
Well, it's very natural. It comes very naturally. Thank you very much. Okay, next caller.
Hi, kids. Have you been good boys and girls or bad boys and girls? I'm Carp from Tumwater, Washington, here to rock you.
It was just energy. It's like pure energy. And that came out of like, had to explode. And I guess that's what they did.
Very, very powerful, and they could read each other really instinctively.
They were all just right on the same page at all times when they're playing together.
They were just a band in the true sense of the word. They had one focus.
The chemistry was like none that I've ever seen with three guys. The understanding and the affection that they all have between each other. I mean, they knew each other from elementary school or whatever.
They really seemed like family to each other. You could tell when they were on stage, you can tell when you saw them showing up everywhere together.
It's like so dark and so like clowny at the same time, you know? Just sort of like the goodness and like the angst all combined into one experience.
With Carp, there was just a complete sense of joy coming from them and from the audience. You felt embraced by Carp in every play. You felt like you were a part of these three dudes' world.
So, Carp, thanks for playing on the air.
Hey, thanks, Diana, for having us.
Oh, no problem. Anytime.
By the way, if you'd
Anytime.
like to get a hold of us for booking or just to give us money for any other reason, you can contact Calvin Johnson, K-Records. K-Records, Calvin Johnson.
I'm Calvin Johnson. I live in Olympia, Washington. And it's exciting to be here for the documentary Kill All Redneck Pricks, a love story.
Not gonna be that dark in here. Might be dark enough.
They were heavy, and there was such beauty to Carp. But fun is really the thing I remember most about those guys, is they knew how to have fun. They were never bored. It was like a real band. Carp was like a real band. They're all really good friends, and they're making music because they're all coming from a similar point of view. That's one of the things that were great about them, is that they had something in that they were going for, they were striving towards. Things got difficult, hard to deal with. But they still had this mentality that, like, we can take on the world, you know? We can solve all our problems. It was almost like they had a mission to make this music. When the 90s started, it was like a new era for Olympia. There's so much more going on.
It seemed like there were shows Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Matinees, all ages, nighttime, all ages. A lot of shows seemed like things were at a boiling point, or could at any moment just go in really wild.
It was like Peanuts, you know? There was no parents around.
It just seemed like the possibilities for sound and the ideas of bands were kind of limitless.
And part of the new era was being in touch with these folks who were younger than us, but they just seemed so much more dynamic than we had been when we were teenagers. Like in the 80s, it was like, I don't know, maybe I toured hardly at all. A couple of short tours. Boy tasting wild cherry. And it was like I always thought, well, why don't we tour? Like, why can't we just tour California? It seemed like we had such a hard time getting shows in California. Such a hard time getting shows anywhere, really, outside of Olympia. But these guys would just get in the van and just go. And they're playing all over the place.
There's this really great thing about community and a scene and feeling like, wow, we're really doing this. Like, we're really all doing this together. It was about, like, you know, we're not going to consume the culture that is, like, being marketed to us. We're going to create our own local culture. And it was very local, and that local thing made it beautiful.
Hello, how's it going out there in radio listening world? Coming up is the International Pop Underground Festival being held in the one and only Oli City, featuring bands like the Melvins. There's just stuff going on everywhere.
Best band ever from the Northwest. Legends, King Buzzo and Dale Crover.
I mean, nothing was bigger than a Melvin show in Olympia.
This is the early 90s. Grunge thing was going on in Nirvana, and they still hadn't taken over the world yet, you know, at this point. And the Melvins, of course, were the biggest of that heavy kind of thing.
They were kind of what every teenage boy wanted to be at the time, and girl. They were the ultimate.
And during that time was when Carp sort of became a band. they were really, really young. They were like high school kids from the area. They were so excited about being in a band, and they were so into it.
There's Chris and Scott. And there's Jared.
They were, really, just buddies. And they were hanging with each other just because they'd grown up together. We're still growing up, at that point.
That's it, they're doing it for real.
They were certainly influenced by the Melvins, playing loud and heavy.
And we liked the Melvins. The Melvins are great. But to them, the Melvins were like the answer.
My first contact was with the newsletter. So it was the first contact with Carp as a concept and as this kind of entity. And so even before the first show, we already knew who they were because they had sort of set this precedent with this ridiculous high school newsletter called Kill All Redneck Pricks. As a band, they were a really perfect embodiment of what you would want three frustrated, nerdy teenage boys to be doing. Just a really enjoyable, earnest, ridiculous teenage explosion.
Especially them coming out of high school and all, they were still full of angst from the bullies in school. The initial Carp, was Kill All Redneck Pricks, and it's just from Tumwater High School where they went to school. It's a rough place in the 80s and 90s to go to school and try to be punk rock.
Yeah, Tumwater is sort of, Olympia, Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater. And Tumwater is sort of considered the more redneck area, just because it's a little bit on the outskirts and it sort of keeps on going. So I think that, since there was a sort of minority of kids that were into punk or just kind of rejects, sort of had to deal with this mentality of the rednecks. I met Carp kind of before they were Carp at Tumwater High School, where I went to high school. We used to call Chris Slayer, the kid, a little mullet, kind of a rocker kid. Scott was a band geek, and Jared was a drama geek. So, yeah, they were just a bunch of nerds. Carp was a bunch of nerds.
I was the weirdest person I knew when I was 12 until I met Scott. And then I was like, dude, I look kind of cool. He was so weird. He was this tall, compared to everyone else. It just had that sprout thing. And it was like, wow, this is a giant guy. And for the funniest motherfucker, he would say things just like, when you're 12, he said things that were a little smarter and a little more clever. We're just like, oh yeah, that's great, We were friends then, we would hang out and sleep over and bullshit and stuff. I didn't meet Jared till middle school, and the reason we met was we were walking through the door one day at these swinging doors. I think we had the same Pee Wee Herman t-shirt on. And it's like, hey bro, Pee Wee Herman. He's like, oh, fuck yeah. Melting of the idiots. Yeah. It was good times.
Me, Chris, Scott, and Jared, we would all eat lunch together. The three of them, they had this group that they called, I think, the Lunch Gang. And that's where I learned about the Melvins. They started talking about, oh, have you heard of this band named the Melvins? They're really heavy and really crazy. They're way different than you're used to. They were our rock gods. They were loud.
tormented in their town. If you think Olympia is a hick town, like Aberdeen is like, it's prison, basically. And I think that's really kind of where they came from when they started playing music, was like they were trying to get out of prison.
You know, how we called Chris Slayer, I think that came from the fact that he was into Slayer. At Tumwater High School, we didn't really have people that were into music. You know, no one wore like leather jackets or had like crazy hairdos or really, you know. Tumwater had a really big football team. They were state champion. I mean, they still, to this day, are probably pretty good.
Oh, look out. He's just swallowed up by the Tumwater defense.
The people at Tumwater High School, the kids that went there, it was hard at first to figure out who were the kids who were going to beat you up and who were the kids that were going to be nice to you. They were like the jock kids, but they wore cowboy stuff, but they didn't ride horses. So those were kind of like more of the redneck prick kids. They would come with like really clean boots. They'd, you know, maybe wear a hat. They were pretty cool.
Well, there were just a lot of weird things that happened. I mean, we got picked on, but there was also, you know, there was a party one time where they like tied a black mannequin up with these football player guys and lit it on fire and beat it with sticks. And we were just thinking, how is this possible where we live?
Then there was a certain point that I started getting like death threats taped on my locker. I think it was shortly after like the death note on the locker, Chris came to school with these flyers that said K-A-R-P with like dots. And it then dipped down and it said, kill all redneck pricks.
I started making these one-sheet kind of zine things, you know, and Jared or I would type it up.
They were just basically notes to the other kids at school, be like, you know, we know that you're jerks and we hate you, basically. Like, just leave us alone.
The gist of it was, you know, definitely the anti-Tumwater sort of manifesto of, you know, the redneck thing and stuff.
Jared and I think would just drop them on the floor, and there'd just be a, you know, people would just, oh, what's this?
I think that Scott's really, he was really, really bright, but didn't fit into the mold. And I think that probably getting picked on in school and stuff like that really bummed him out. But, you know, have a band that's called Kill Redneck Pricks and just be like, you know, fuck you assholes, eat this. And I think there's a certain amount of like triumph in that. You know, you can sort of take it during the day a little bit better if you know at night you're gonna like pound it out.
I was 15, and Jared and I were in a chemistry class together called Action Chemistry. It was like the bonehead class where you just, you know, yeah, you mix baking soda and vinegar and, you know, it foams up, you know what I mean? It's just really stupid. You didn't have to do any lab work and take any notes. So we were just talking in there. We just bullshitted the whole time we were in there. And it's like, we should start a band, you know? And we weren't doing it like based on, I can play this well and you're pretty good this, you know? It was like, oh, you're funny, you know? It was more like, let's make a silly thing. That's how it was. It was like 1990 in high school we met and then started playing out at Jared's mom's shed.
We had this curtain as security. This is this tarp you could drag across so it was secure. I think originally we didn't have amps was the problem. The guitar Chris had was a friend of ours, this guy Matt Stender. It was his guitar and amp, I think, that Chris had managed to talk him into giving him or just borrowing indefinitely or something. Scott had a drum set that his parents had bought him, and I used a karaoke machine as my bass amp for a while. One of those like old style cassette tape ones that just, you know, was all built into one unit, but you could plug an input into it and you could turn it up real loud and it kind of distorted. It was terrible.
Probably the worst equipment you could choose. It sounded just like garbage. It did not sound good. And I know it didn't, you know. Then I knew it, and now I know it. Could barely like make sure that we both hit the same note at the same time. The only thing that made it sound like a song would be Scott playing the drums and keeping a beat to whatever just crap-ass noise we're making. There was just rhythm, because Scott could actually hit the drums in time. The rest was just like... We didn't have a PA or anything, so we tried to scream over the music. Couldn't hear what you were saying, unless you just screamed. Then Scott got like this Melvins album, and he started listening to it. And instead of just doing this straightforward drum stuff, all of a sudden he was going slam, 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 crack, crack, slam, slam. We just started trying to get more and more equipment to be as loud as possible.
None of us drank or like did any drugs. Not because we were straight edge, but just because we didn't have any cool friends. Like we just didn't, you know, we were having a fine time as it was.
I remember Jared calling me one time. We'd been playing for a while and done the newsletters and stuff. He said, I don't really like the idea of having something that says kill someone, kill anybody. You know, I was like, well, that's all right. It's not really supposed to literally mean to murder someone for liking Garth Brooks or something, you know, it's just, you know. Eventually dropped the periods and stuff, and they're like, what does that mean? We were supposed to say nothing. It's like The Fish, but just with a K, just because we like it like that. It doesn't mean kill rednecks or whatever.
We went on our first tour on spring break of senior year. Went down the coast, and we had the demo tape. We had never been outside the state before.
I think we drove every city between Seattle and San Diego, Huntington Beach, San Francisco, we did San Jose, Santa Cruz. We'd play and open for other bands, probably get anywhere from $10 to like $50 for opening. It was rough, you know, but it was so fun, you know, what are you gonna do? The funnest stuff I ever did was hang out with them in a van for hours on end and just drive.
I was the only one that was still in high school. Chris and Scott had dropped out. Chris dropped out the first day of senior year. Scott dropped out maybe 3 months after that. I stayed in school, but I didn't go that much because those guys were my only friends and they were off doing really fun things and I was stuck in school. It sucked.
It was a small little world there. People worked at the State Theater. They lived in Chinatown and the Martin. Shows at the Capitol Theater. It's kind of like everything within 2 blocks. Michelle or lived down the hall from me at the Martin Apartments. And sometime during like August or September of '92, they moved in with her, Chris and Scott. I don't know if they officially moved in, but they were there all the time. There was always laughter going on over there, giggling more like. They were always making these t-shirts with puffy paint and sprinkles all over it, and it was cool. They were 17 or 16 when they lived in the Martin. They were together all the time. They're just like, go for it. Be in a band, quit school, rock, make some puffy paint t-shirts. At one point, they said they wanted to talk to us. They're very solemn. They're like, okay, we would like to make an album on K. And they had it all worked out. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. They just wanted to make sure it was going to be okay with us. We're like, yeah, whatever you want. Absolutely. They did the covers with the cards and they cut them all up. And another craft project they had going over there at Michelle's apartment.
What it began as was like adorable. It was, it was cute. And then, I don't know, they got confident.
They got better amps, they got heavier, louder. I mean, they really became Carp. It was like, well, Carp now has their own sound. They don't sound really like another band in particular. And no one sounds like Carp.
They started playing a lot of shows in Olympia.
Olympia had sort of like busted out and was like nationally known as like Olympia. They're an Olympia band. It came from Olympia. Let's go. And it became this sort of weird mecca. At that point, it was just like this huge thing. Like all these people descended on Olympia. And this was also a point when like Carp was pretty big at the time.
after that, I think like we kept keeping busy and writing, practicing, and none of us went to college. We didn't want to do anything other than goof off and play music, so we did.
This is the title bout, motherfuckers. No holds barred, cage match. Tag me in, look out for the suplex. Hey, is that a foreign object? No way, Carpomaniacs. Just rock and fucking roll. Let's get ready to rumble!
So this record, this Suplex record, the idea that they were kind of be the world champions of bands, but they were also wrestlers at the same time. And then they took on these personas, which I took the pictures. Jared's the all-American lover, Chris is the bad girl, and Scott was Big Slim.
They were three jokers, all of them, and the way they acted around each other, you could confuse them for like three brothers or something. You know, they all had the same sense of humor, practically. Scott was more the dude wearing the smile all the time, and like you can never get offended at anything Scott says. Jared's the one that loved the practical jokes, and then Chris is like, you know, deadpan, dry humor. So all of those aspects would combine when they're hanging out with each other into this hilarious rock and roll juggernaut.
Carp were just pretty honest in their expression, you know. They weren't afraid to, you know, kind of look stupid for something, you know, and where other people might. So I think they were just like, well, that's kind of part of our thing. You know, we play this heavy music, but this is also a part of our thing, and we're not going to really hide that. I think that's probably one of their Carp's best qualities, is that they were kind of true to how they are as people.
Like there was a certain way to kind of act and a certain way to be cool in Olympia at the time. Like this was not it. Like taking your shirt off and like pretending to be wrestlers was like not it. This was just like, it's not so serious, you know? We're not afraid of like being funny or making asses of ourselves.
I don't know, it's just a really fun time. It's like we were living in this shitty punk house where we paid next to nothing in rent. We all worked at the State Theater where we would scam all this money by double selling tickets.
There was a dollar theater in downtown Olympia called the State Theater, and they showed like, I guess what we'd call like second run movies. Scott and Chris and Jared all worked there all at the same time. The people that worked there sort of all had free reign over this theater, it seemed like. You know, the theater would close at like a normal time, like midnight or whatever, the last movie, but they would just keep it open and have friends come. So we just would bring beer to the theater.
Get the hell out of here! Fuck you!
So they had what they called punk money, which was basically like they were working these scams.
It was my job as the door person to go through the theater after the showing and collect the tubs and garbage in the whole aisles. And everyone just threw their shit everywhere. And this is one thing, don't leave your popcorn tubs in the aisles.
You'd clean the theaters after a movie and there'd be popcorn tubs, and we'd pick them up and clean them out. But only the ones that looked really clean. You'd only use popcorn tubs that hadn't had too much butter on them because they couldn't be stained. Resell it, that's $6 that you split at the end of the night. Soda pop, not so much, but we did do it. We would wash out like soda pop cups and resell those.
Someone just got done like, you know, chaw spitting in a Coke cup. You'd rinse it out and wipe it out and refill it with Coke and resell it.
And so we all had it pretty good. Like we were all like cheap rent, stealing lots of money from our work, playing rock and roll music. It was great.
That's the kind of jobs we worked, you know what I mean? Just so when the time came to tour and we'd have something booked for 6 weeks, it'd be like, the kind of job you had would be like, you know, I'm leaving for 6 weeks. If you want to let me work when I get back, that's cool. Otherwise, I'll just get a different, see you later, you know, thanks for the work, you know.
After Suplex came out, we toured on that. And we toured quite a bit. Like we toured the coast, you know, at least three times a year, and we're touring nationally a couple times a year. We got Kay to loan us money for the first real Carp van, which was a camper top van. That was a great van. It had this window that had broke, and we had a piece of plastic that just like goes. And you drive, and just making the worst noise in the world, like we're driving 70 miles an hour.
Remember, huh?
Right here, man. We converted it.
It was a really good van because it had a loft in it. We could all actually sleep in there. You could sleep 2 on the top, 1 on the bench, and then 1 on the floor. It always had like somebody, just like, we take one other person with us to sell stuff.
Yeah, this mountain stuff is pretty cool. Are you feeling me?
I am. Oh yeah.
How's it going?
It's going.
Okay. Well, it's a fun drive so far, huh?
It's been great.
And it's great to get 4 hours of sleep up in the
totally
loft.
Yep. Did that at the rest stop outside of Eugene.
Yeah, it feels like you're pretty well rested actually when you sleep in the van. So I was pretty excited to get up. We ate at McDonald's for breakfast.
Yep, us too.
We all had the sausage McMuffin with egg breakfast. Except Scott's had no egg.
We had the #1 breakfast combo. That thing's hard to drive.
He's all over the road. Let's go. It's hot, hippies. Fuck.
Hey, man, where's Jerry?
Eat my hole. Let's go.
I'm getting a nice close-up of that.
But we toured like crazy after that.
Oh, you do have a hole in there.
Their Suplex tour was really cool because this was their second or third time around the country. You could tell people had looked forward to it. You just got the feeling people loved this band. After the Suplex tour was when they started working on the self-titled LP. We got kicked out of the house that we were all living in. Everybody, you know, kind of got their own place. I guess that's when, like, some bad times kind of started.
Chris was starting to have a really hard time. He was kind of getting kind of crazy with boozing it up, and he just got really dark a lot. Like, he'd just get really mean. And when there's one person in the van like that, and you're traveling with them for 2 months, and, you know, it's just infectious, and this dark cloud over, you know, just the vibe just kind of just stopped, just got to be not as fun. Everything just felt kind of darker in general.
Holy shit. That is so much worse than it was, like, when we used to play here and stuff. It's so fucked up. Hello? Scott's room in here.
Scott had a really nice bedroom. It was kind of the first time he had this like adult bedroom. He had a bed and a couch and a nice big TV and his video games. And guaranteed like he would be there all day, every day, just playing video games and smoking and drinking soda and eating like candy bars and stuff.
So abandoned.
For a while, it seemed like all Scott would eat was Mountain Dew and Snickers bars. I don't know how he survived on that.
They put out the self-titled record right when I got there, like literally the second day I came into Lucky Seven House. I think they finished it. I remember literally from the first note being so blown away. They were really starting to get popular. They had a lot of opportunities that were coming up and a lot of positive anticipation for what was in store for the band.
Well, that was when we were sounding the best, making the best music. We'd all been playing together for a while at that point, and I felt like we were just starting to make like some really good shit. Like what I wanted it to sound like when I was younger, before we could really play very well at all, where I could actually make it and make it sound cool.
I mean, they were a great band, and that self-titled record just was incredible, and everyone just flipped out over it. And Chris's problems were just sabotaging it. You know, Jared and Scott are the most, like, amazing dudes in the world, and, you know, they didn't pass any judgment or anything on Chris, but they were all really unhappy about it because they had this great opportunity dangling like a carrot in front of them, you know, and couldn't do anything about it because Chris couldn't do it.
I think it was after self-titled came out. It might have been before, but he got into a fight with he had gotten married, and he had gotten into a fight, and she came back from whatever she was doing, and he had hung himself.
I remember really, really shady, but I guess I got a tie and tied it around my neck, put it around the beam in the apartment, and got a little stool, and then it gave a little hop. I locked the door. I thought I had. She came back in.
My friend John heard the screaming, like, from his apartment when she came home. He ran over there and got him down, kept him alive, basically, until the medics got there. He was like in this coma for a few days. They found all sorts of drugs in his system that we didn't know he was taking. It was just like, fuck, this is such a drag.
I woke up later and had to come out of a temporary sort of brain swelling thing where I couldn't remember what had happened. I had a lot of anxiety issues. I had a lot of just like terror throughout my everyday life that just didn't seem to let up, and it seemed like it would be easier than dealing with whatever I'd have to deal with, and then I thought that maybe it wouldn't hurt. That's what I thought. When I was a kid in the 80s, I heard a lot about nuclear war, about the end of the world, countries colliding, technology becoming too vast, and someone doing something where we would have no choice. I paid attention to the news, I paid attention to politics, or just the way the air felt in the world, and I felt like that was a real possibility that it could all just disintegrate. And I felt like I was always like expecting it. And once I tried it, it was like, oh, this is exactly, I think, how you're supposed to feel. Like it switched something on in my mind that made me feel like that was the way I always wanted to feel instead of normal. I had something there in my head that was like cooled off. Like put out the fucking fire or something.
The Peanuts mentality still was taking over, the idea that, well, we can take care of him. And I think when he left the hospital, they were like really saying, this is not a good idea for you to leave. You need professional help. It was very consistent with the idea of, well, drop out of high school, be in a band, play the Capitol Theater. But, you know, they're very optimistic people. So they were like, we can do this. And there's a lot of beauty in that.
So when he got everything together and healed himself up and got himself clean, Carp played a welcome back show.
None of us had seen them play together for a really long time, and I don't think anyone thought they were going to play together again.
And it was incredible. People just like on the side of the stage weeping. I mean, no joke, like people crying. The emotion of them coming out of this really tragic situation was truly, truly incredible.
The last Carp tour started off with some hesitancy. It just felt uncomfortable. But also, that last record had come out, and the shows were amazing. There were so many people coming, and the energy in the rooms were crazy. It ended after the show in the middle of Texas, in the absolute middle of nowhere. Big open skies, cattle, and we were at a gas station, and Chris demanded that we go home, and he was not going to budge. We drove straight from Texas all the way to Olympia, Washington, nonstop through the Badlands. It was sad. We really wanted to finish that tour.
It was after my hospital visit. I was in a not good mind space. I wasn't ready to be out on the road, even though I was. And just said, can we just go? I'm done. I don't even want to do this anymore. I'm done, you know? We turned it around. We just drove right back to Washington from Texas. It made me feel terrible, but at the same time, I was I felt so broken. I just wanted to, like, be back in the comfort zone. And an addicted brain will tell you anything to get back to somewhere where it can do its thing and play out its own shit.
Driving back, the joking had stopped, and the feeling in the van being pretty down. It was almost like he had a sense of relief that he was going to be going back up to the Northwest. That was the end. It wasn't the last show, it was the last tour, last time we attempted to tour.
Are you warm enough, dude? Do you mind? Yeah. I'm gonna kill it, okay? Is there an off? Oh, here's where I work. Every January, it's time to return to the big concrete boob in the sky. I know a lot of people think that anyone can read text and make sure that all the commas and periods are in place and the spelling is, but no, it takes a real special personality. This is the Washington State Legislative Building. You know, once a year, I like to come to the Legislative Building in Washington State, and I do a little work for them. What I do is I sit in a little corner office. I give it a go. You know, they pass some paperwork through me, and I try to proofread, give them the best I got. Well, someone's got to make sure that the shit's spelled right. Look, they pee on their own fucking shoes. I mean, they can't spell words. They don't know where a period or a comma goes, especially. You know what's the bitch for these guys? Semicolons. Oh, they'll put a semicolon in between anything. They'll use a semicolon for a colon. Like that's all, folks. They'll be like THAT semicolon S. Really? And, you know, isn't that kind of, that's like 8th or 9th grade English, I swear. But this is where it all happens, right here, the Washington State Legislative Building. You know, sometimes I just like to give the Capitol building a big fucking hug, you know? It's a good boy. How you doing there, boy, huh? Good boy. Well, they told me that the band was over. Like, Scott said, well, you probably are already, I'm sure you're already aware, you know, but, you know, the band's done. I don't want to be around you like this. I don't want to, you know. It's like, okay.
We played one last show at the Break Room in Seattle. It was great, and like things were going really well for us. Like we were selling records, shows were sold out, all that shit. And then shortly after that, we discovered that Chris was using some really heavy drugs, and that was kind of it.
The last show we played in Seattle, I was fucking dope sick and played the whole set. Went out and like was laid out in the back, panting and sweating and trying to drink water and just sick. Like I said, I wish I would have never tried it once, you know? I was 23, I was working in a sandwich shop. We were playing music still, you know? My mom called me and told me she needs me to come over. So I got up, did a big load of fucking dope. I went there in the van was parked in the driveway, you know. I walked in, Scott's drinking a cup of coffee. I always remember Scott like this. Smile without your eyes, I guess. Anyway, sat down in the living room and Mom started reading a letter. It was a classic, like, intervention kind of thing. You know what? I'll be honest, as selfish as a fucking junkie is, all I cared about right then, all I fucking cared about, I saw them, you know, looking at the floor, my mother, tears in her eyes, and I cared about where was I gonna get a hit. I'm out of dope. To someone that's not familiar with addiction, it looks like, oh, I see, your decision is to destroy yourself. And for me, it's like, no, I'm trying to have fun, or, you know, I don't want to die, I just want to do heroin. It doesn't work like that. I went into rehab right after that, that night. I didn't stay there, but I went there. And that's the last, I mean, we never played again after that, you know. Well, we were friends after that, though, you know? I mean, in a different way. I think it broke their hearts to see someone they cared about destroying themselves like that. You gotta let someone go. And maybe hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Is that what they say? There's a lot of cliches involved. I wish and blow out the candles.
It's not like in a movie or whatever where there's just like things just get better or whatever. People have ups and downs and they're going through life and there's hard times. And Chris, for a long time, he had real major ups and downs. And a lot of people had problems with Chris over the last few years and maybe even wrote him off.
When Carp broke up, Scott didn't play drums for a long time, and I think that kind of took a toll on him.
Scott wasn't playing at all, you know? He wasn't playing at all. And it was like, well, he could be playing drums for anybody, anywhere, but he didn't want to, you know?
It was a really tough time for him. He really went through a lot. I don't think he ever would have said he was depressed, but that lifestyle that we all were leading of working in bars, hanging out in bars, it was easy to get away with sleeping all day and stuff like that. But there was definitely a period of time where, you know, he wasn't the healthiest guy ever anyway, but like his dark circles got really dark and he kind of got really thin and he wasn't happy. He was going through some
some mental stuff, you know.
And it was years before he started playing with somebody else.
After that happened, we didn't hang out that much for, I don't know, a couple of years. Like, we just needed kind of some space from each other. Not because we didn't get along, but because it was just everything had been such a traumatic time, a really heavy time. And then he ended up moving to Seattle. I kind of had it with Olympia at that point. And was just really lonely in a lot of ways. Just really wanted to play music with him again. But was kind of waiting it out, making sure that, like, we were both in a place where we could do that again. I remember going to the bar he worked at in Seattle one night, and I brought a boombox in my car, like a battery-powered boombox with this tape. Like, listen, man, I really want to play music with you again. And I had a couple drinks to, like, loosen myself up, and got kind of emo. And it was like asking, like, some girl out on a date that you, like, had the hots for, but wasn't really sure. Like, I think she kind of likes me, but I'm not sure. I was like, fuck it. And I remember sitting in the car and listening to the songs. And he was like, yeah, I think I could do that. I'm like, all right, cool. And I was so happy and went home, and I was like so excited that we were gonna play music.
It was like confirmed, okay, the world isn't such a horrible place. Scott and Jared are playing together again. Yes. Could there be a God?
It was just kind of like the old days, like, again, almost instantly.
They had that glimmer and shine like they did when they were kids again. They were smiling like they did when they were kids.
Scott is crazy excited about the whip. He loves Joe Preston, thinks the world of him. His love for Jared, I think he finally felt comfortable really expressing, like, he was just like over the moon, crazy, wicked, excited, like this band is gonna conquer the world.
I understood that there was loss from Carp dissolving just in the fact that Jared and Scott lost the fun of playing together. Once they started playing together again, I think they definitely got that back.
We had another tour, we had a national tour scheduled. We're getting ready to record a record. And then he passed away. It was just such a, like, such a blow.
It was clearly devastating. We had a memorial service up at the studio there at the Olympia Knitting Mill. And Jared was a big part of organizing that.
My mother says that rain is angels who are crying up in heaven. And I believe that, 'cause when sad things happen, it starts raining. It's been raining. It's been raining for a while now. It's been raining at least 40 days. And I've been crying since the first time someone I loved passed away. I'll build an ark inside my body in a bottle and disappear.
It was really difficult for lots of different reasons. I had, you know, lost my oldest friend person that made me laugh the most, someone I didn't have to explain jokes to, somebody I really loved playing music with. I don't know, I just felt really lost for a long time. I had no idea what I was gonna do.
40 days, and I've been crying since the first time someone I loved passed away.
I remember at Scott's funeral, and the weeks afterwards, Jared just talking about feeling kind of lost. Like, where is Scott? And, you know, Chris is kind of, to me, in the same place. Like, I can't reach him, and I don't know how he's gonna be. You know, it seemed so sad.
When Scott died, it was like Jared had lost another family member in that he had already lost Chris from his family. Jared was adrift from his family of friends growing up.
I didn't know what to do. I couldn't see myself playing with another drummer. Not with like music that you know, the thing that we did, you know. And I didn't know how to make that happen with anyone else. When we started the Whip, it was such a good vibe. And then it was gone.
For a while, I just was on the street. Sleeping in the woods or whatever. And I can't even believe where I allowed it to go, you know. I used to have veins up and down my arms and my hands, like I looked like a normal, healthy, you know. I would just stick in so many different places that they either all collapsed or sunk below the skin. I had to go to the hospital. I had an infection in my neck from shooting in there. It was a giant ball of MRSA. I admitted in there that I decided to look into this treatment I heard about. Came out of there and just walked downtown, got right back into doing the drugs right away. And then after just a short time of that, got picked up and had to actually go to jail.
I think it was like 6 months later. I knew that Jared was not doing anything. I knew that he was super excited about the Whip when that was happening. And I knew that in all likelihood, like, he might never play music ever again. I don't know, like, I just wanted to play, and like, I wanted him to play again too. And I'm pretty sure that Scott would want him to play again too. Jared should be playing music. I was like, well, I'm not doing anything, he's not doing anything. If anything, like, it'll get him off the bench and maybe start playing again. And that's kind of how that's how Big Business started.
Hey, thank you very much. We are Big Business, formerly from Seattle. We live in Hollywood now. We don't have time for y'all anymore, but it's your loss. Anyway, here's some songs we wrote just for you. Hey, we don't need that language. It's nice.
I remember we were in Milwaukee, and it was super shitty, like winter, snowing, and sitting there, it just kind of occurred to us like, well, we're bartenders, we're playing in a band and touring all the time, like, we could be anywhere. Like, we don't have to live in Seattle anymore. And we were just kind of like, let's just move to LA, like, fuck it. At least if we fail horribly and like everything falls apart, at least we'll be warm. After we'd already decided that, I was working at this bar, and Jared came in with his kind of like, sat down, ordered a drink, glazed look on his face. He's like, I just got a call from the Melvins. And immediately I was just like, my first thought was like, great, have fun, like, cool, back to square one again, like start over. So I was kind of like, go ahead, and he's like, yeah, and they want me to play bass. I'm like, yep, okay. And he's like, well, they want you to play drums too. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Buzz called and he was like, we want you guys to be in the band. Starts a backpedal, right? And I try to get out of it and warm out of it. That's pretty much how it happened. I know how upsetting that was.
The Pacific Northwest. Sometimes you just gotta hug a tree, you know? It just makes you feel closer to the earth. Closer to nature and closer to the earth. When I was born, they say it was my birth. That was the day that I popped out. After I got out of jail, one time, I was done. It's funny, it's like I almost lost my life. I was in there with an infection in my throat next to my main artery and my neck. And that was almost enough to get me to quit. But then when I went to jail and really spent some time in there, like, I knew I didn't want to go back there. I was done. Became a totally different person than I ever thought I would be. Drugs can take anything that you were or wanted to be and nullify it entirely. I'm in the 2% of people that get to get away from the heroin stuff and make it out. There's a few roads out. There's death, there's jail, institutions, that kind of thing. I went to jail. I got back in touch with my family, and it was like we never fucking left off.
Chris and Scott and I were very, very good friends, and there's no two people in the world that made me laugh harder than those guys. And one of them is kind of MIA, and the other is gone. And it leaves a real lonely spot in my heart where that's concerned. It's hard for me to explain to people what it's like to lose your two best friends in like awful ways, you know. It hurts a lot. I miss both of them all the time. The two lessons I really learned from all of that was that shit happens and keep on trucking. It sounds trite and ridiculous and cliche and silly, but I think it's really true. Because people go, they leave, they die, they move away. And all you can do is enjoy the relationships that you have with people in that moment. And just do the best you can. You have to just keep going. There's still a life to live.